Story 1. I definitely think it was the right choice for me. I have to be honest with myself. I am a little lazy and selfish, and while I think I might have been a decent dad, I don't think I would have been a happy one. Story 2. On the one hand, I seriously envy my friends who have two lovely sons who are now in high school. On the other hand, I am glad that I am not my sister and brother-in-law who have two high-energy children who are 4 and 6. Who would have thought that my top comment ever would be calling my nephews spawns of Satan? They're absolutely a high-energy handful and frustrating to deal with right now, but they are good kids, and I love them to bits. I just moderate my time with them to save my sanity. Story 3. I cannot even take care of myself, let alone have to take care of another living person. So I just do what I want with my life and have a great time doing it. It's pretty awesome. Story 1. I definitely think it was the right choice for me. I have to be honest with myself. I am a little lazy and selfish, and while I think I might have been a decent dad, I don't think I would have been a happy one. Story 2. On the one hand, I seriously envy my friends who have two lovely sons who are now in high school. On the other hand, I'm glad that I'm not my sister and brother-in-law who have two energetic children who are 4 and 6. Who would have thought that my top comment ever would be calling my nephews energetic children? They're absolutely a high-energy handful and frustrating to deal with right now, but they are good kids, and I love them to bits. I just moderate my time with them to save my sanity. Story 3. I cannot even take care of myself, let alone have to take care of another living person. So I just do what I want with my life and have a great time doing it. It is pretty awesome. Story 4. I never once had the tingling feeling of wanting to become a parent. I simply don't have that want, desire, or responsibility to raise a child, especially in this timeline we're living in. Then I met my wife who thinks the exact same way. We both love traveling, backpacking, and camping. It's freeing knowing we can get up in a split second and go. Story 5. Honestly, sort of sad, but not overwhelming. I was always ambivalent about having kids. I would have been up for it if my partner wanted them, but he didn't, and I was totally fine not having them. I still don't feel strongly about it. But that partner and I broke up a few years back, and now that I'm in my early 40s, it's just very weird to realize that, well, that window is probably closed. I mean, as far as I know, I could still get pregnant, but my current partner and I aren't in a place to be looking at that, and since we'd really have to try like now, I'm accepting that it's just not going to happen. So yeah, there's some kind of grief. But it's a weird sort of grief because I never actively wanted kids and was always perfectly comfortable with the idea of not having them. It's more grief over losing the potential of having them in the future, I guess. Since so many people have said, why not just adopt? I'll add that I am adopted, closed infant adoption. And though I love being adopted, for many reasons I explain in this comment thread, I have always known I would never myself adopt. Everyone is aware of adoption as an option, but it's a unique journey that should be chosen on its own merits, and not every person is suited to be an adoptive parent. And also, I still don't actively want kids. Story 6. It's weird because all your friends with children, which is most everyone, are completely consumed by their kids, so you don't relate as well with others. But also it's great because I have extra money, and I can spend it on whatever I please. Oh, and I have extra time to do whatever I please. But sometimes I want to do something with my best friend, but she can't because of her kid, so there are positives and negatives. Story 7. For a while, I was a fence sitter. It wasn't until 30 that I realized it was even a choice and not an inevitability. In United States culture, marriage and children are a common life script. It took time for me to acknowledge that that script isn't a good fit for me, and it didn't solidify until my late 30s. For a while, it was money and security, as well as environmental concerns and overpopulation. But it was also simply a lack of real desire to be a parent. I've often wished we could live multiple lives so that we can try all the things, but in this life, I don't really want children. That was hard for me to grapple with in some ways because I was blessed with great parents and my mother was a fantastically caring role model. But my biggest reason for thinking about parenthood was fear of regret. That's not enough. Parents should really want their children. This is a whole other human being you're bringing into this world. They deserve to be wanted and loved and properly cared for. You're responsible for them, and it might not turn out roses. Parental anxiety doesn't magically dissipate after 18 years, either. For the rest of your life, you are a parent. There are also a lot of physical things that can go wrong with pregnancy, especially the pregnant person, which are not talked about enough. Our society holds a very rose-colored glasses view of pregnancy as glowing and natural. It really messes with people's bodies, not to mention postpartum mental health. A lot of folks will argue that not having children is selfish. This is puzzling because those same folks will say in the next breath that having children ensures you won't die lonely. If you need to be a parent because that feels like your destiny and you are full of love, that's one thing, but if you're having children to safeguard your own future, now that is selfish. Not to mention the resource impact on the planet. If you are unhappy, parenthood won't fix it. If you are lonely, parenthood won't fix it. If you're following a life script in a daze, trying to check all the right boxes, take a moment to examine your reasons. If you want to be a parent, that's great. Best of love and luck. It's possible to live a comfortable life full of love, while doing what you want, while taking time to give back to your community, while staying open and curious and generally living a good life without adding parenthood into the mix. Story 8. Pretty great. My wife turned out to be a narcissistic abuser, so I divorced her. No kids that would have suffered from her behavior. No kids that would have suffered through the divorce. I'm more than happy to be the silly, fun uncle to my brother's kids. Story 9. I wanted children, but my uterus decided that ejecting them would be a better idea. I sometimes grieve the idea of being a parent. Then I snap back to reality when the reality of my life makes me not fit to be a parent. I am on the disability pension for multiple sclerosis. I am legally blind and cannot drive and have to depend on others to do things for me. I could not provide what I feel is a fulfilling life for a child. I get to sleep in, I get to love my cats and be the weird aunt to my nieces and nephews instead. It is what it is, and I am at peace with it. Story 10. I wanted to have kids, but I couldn't. So sometimes I'm a bit sad seeing friends and colleagues having children. But it's nothing I can change, so I'm usually not thinking much about it. And sometimes I'm also a bit glad I don't have kids. Seeing how the world goes badly and no one seems to care to make the necessary changes so that their children or grandchildren will still have a livable world. Story 11. After numerous miscarriages, we were in our 40s with no children. We would both do anything to have had children. If we had a kid now, I would be 68 when they graduated from high school. Story 12. Pretty rough. I only started to feel better and come out of the sadness when I took full responsibility for choosing not to have children. My first partner didn't want kids until he was 40. My first husband was abusive and irresponsible. My boyfriends after that were non-committal. My second husband is amazing but has kids, had a vasectomy, and felt he was too old to adopt or foster. The reality is I chose these partners. I've got lovely adult stepchildren, and I'm an aunt and godmother. I've fostered rescue animals for 20 years. It's not the same, but you can't always get what you want, as the song goes. When I have feelings about it, I have to take it on the chin. Story 13. I'm happy. I love sleeping in late on Saturday mornings, not driving to tons of kids' sporting events, never having to stand on the sidelines in the cold and rain, cheering on kids and driving to kids' parties every weekend. I often hear parents complain about preparing school lunches, which is not an issue. Honestly, as a child, I never dreamed of being a mother. I never played with dolls. I never envisioned a time when I would have kids. I grew up in a very noisy house with way too many people crammed into a small space. My many siblings quickly had lots of kids as well. I've been surrounded by kids and spent a lot of my life looking after other people, cleaning, cooking, and being a general dog's body. I just don't want to do that anymore. I go on decent holidays. I'm free on the weekends. I love the peace and quiet. I am very happy in my own company, and I have a very limited social battery. I don't believe I would have made a good parent. I do like kids, but I feel I've sacrificed enough of my life looking after other people, and I'm happy as I am. Story 14. As someone who has wanted to have children but has fertility issues, it's been soul-crushing. Yes, I have freedom, but the only thing worse than being disappointed myself is watching my wife struggle. Having and raising kids is all she's ever wanted. and I have been unable to give her that. Hoping to adopt, but it's an incredibly lonely and vulnerable experience, especially if you aren't willing to go through a religious agency. Story 15. I'm 47 now, and it's like dying a little every day. As a loss people refuse to let you grieve. My husband and I are both infertile. We couldn't afford in vitro fertilization in our state, as insurance doesn't cover it. He took medication for nearly a year to get his sperm count high enough for intrauterine insemination. We had one attempt and it failed. The medication I took to make me ovulate was ineffective because I have polycystic ovary syndrome. He started having scary side effects from the medication, and we had to stop. This was 9 years ago. Shortly after, his sister got pregnant with her first child and made sure to tell me she didn't want to be pregnant. Shortly after that, my youngest sister got pregnant and complained to me about how it took 3 months of trying to conceive. Then she made my life difficult the entire time she was pregnant with unhinged threats of never seeing her kids again because I had a reaction to the flu shot. She also told me to suck it up when I called her crying about the infertility diagnosis. Other people have it worse, she said. We couldn't afford to adopt at the time. The attorney told us $60,000 was average, and we'd be on a waiting list for years. Plus, once we hit 40, our chances of being selected were slim. After the foster care classes and the horror stories, plus being told there were no infants or toddlers available to adopt, we backed away from foster care. Family wasn't supportive of us adopting because of the issues another family member had. Now I'm 47. My older nieces and nephews have kids. My youngest sister has kids. My friends from school are grandparents. I regret every single day we didn't go bankrupt trying to have a family. Now we make enough to make payments on a loan to adopt, but I'm too old to be selected by a birth mother. Polycystic ovary syndrome has ruined my body. Insurance won't cover anything to treat it, and $1,500 a month for the medication is still unaffordable. I'm in perimenopause and have started ovulating naturally for the first time. The irony. I'm the fun aunt. We take the little nieces and nephews places and buy them fun toys. My sister-in-law is financially struggling with 4 kids, 3 from marriage and 1 biological, and expects us to do the expensive stuff they can't afford with her kids. We do, but it's weird knowing how much she dislikes me, yet she sees us as a way for her kids to experience things. Since we don't have kids, we are expected to handle all the elder care. The I have kids and a job excuse is my youngest sister's favorite go-to when dad needs something. She is 5 minutes away, and I'm an hour, but 90% of the time, she says she can't help him out because she has kids. I work too. My older sister's husband has dementia, so they are spending time with the grandkids now because soon he won't know who they are. We have money to mostly do what we want, but we don't have any time. We do everything for everyone else and are made to feel horrible if we don't. The trade-off for us is a deep longing to have kids, but no time for the freedom everyone says we have. Lately, I've been crying a lot about the whole thing. No one but my husband cares. We are just free babysitting and dad's helpers. I'm running myself ragged and on the edge of a nervous breakdown. My older sister sees it, my husband sees it, but dad and my youngest sister won't or can't. My health is affected by the stress. I look at my friends' social media pages with their grandkids and kids, and I think I have nothing. I hate my childless life. My husband can't even enjoy the freedom we didn't want because no one respects us or our time. Holidays are dependent on family inviting us to attend. Otherwise, it will just be us and the cats. People keep telling us we should have adopted or that we gave up too soon. Or, if you couldn't afford the $60,000 to adopt, you are too poor to have kids. The male infertility specialist said that. I asked if he had $60,000 just hanging out to spend to adopt, and he was shocked at how much it was. I'm not always this bitter. It starts hitting hard around Halloween and continues to be a challenge until after Christmas. This is the hardest time of the year, but I smile and hide it. I don't want to hear one more God's will, God's punishment, or you should have adopted. Nor do I want to hear, take one of my monsters. You will change your mind. Infertility is a complex and emotionally draining experience. Family dynamics are also complex. I think many families don't understand that childless couples still have lots of other responsibilities. In our case, my youngest sister is a narcissist, and my dad may be as well, although less toxic. My older sister lives under the shadow of her husband of 30 years, morphing into someone she no longer knows, and who doesn't know many of us anymore, and who is actively and slowly dying. We try hard to keep the peace. Story 16, hard. I feel like I missed out on the best parts of adulthood. First steps, taking my kid to school, coaching little league, school plays, dinner table conversations, family vacations, helping them when they are hurt, Santa Claus, seeing them grow, arguments and apologies, grandchildren. It just never materialized for me. It's like I wasn't worthy of that gift, of even finding a wife to build a family. It sucks hard many days. I can put on a brave face, but deep down it's crushing. Male 48, one sister who also has no kids. Story 17. I'm in my mid-40s. People around my age mostly have not yet teenage kids. Some even toddlers or babies. As much as I have spent a moment earlier in life thinking that it would be great to parent this hypothetical dream child, but we all know having kids is kind of uncertain as to what you'd get. I'm sincerely so glad I'm not one of these overstressed, self-neglecting, due to lack of time or energy, full-time working but also carrying 90% of caregiving and chores, married, mothers around me because I'd want to harm myself.